This is a single person, outward swinging, high density prop. This evolution is going to feature the use of only the irons. The purpose of this video is to demonstrate the capabilities of using forcible entry tools on what we consider a high density door and would otherwise call in a like rotary saw. So the first thing we want to do is we always want to size up our door. So what we have is a metal door encased in a metal frame, encased in simulated masonry. We're going to identify our locking mechanism. So we're always going to try, pry, and then break. So to start, to try, I got nothing, it's tight. I don't have any play in the door. So I'm going to go to try and then to eventually break. What I'm going to look at first is going to be the gap in the door. So the space between the door and the actual jam it's set in. So this is a pretty tight jam. I see that I'm going to have to use the adze end of my Halligan and force that in. So I'm going to go waist height because that's where it's comfortable for me. I've identified I have a locking mechanism, so I'm going to go as close as I can to that, either directly below it or directly above it. So with my adze end into the gap of the door, I'm going to drive until I hit the jam stop of the actual jam. So as I sink the tool into the gap of the door, I'm going to go until I hit that. I know I hit that because I can hear the difference of the metal from when I'm striking to when I'm actually hitting metal behind it. So from here, we want to create some room for us to leverage this tool against the door. So I'm going to simulate crunching the door down and crunching the door back up to be able to create a purchase point for us to get around that door. So as we would push down, we would create that distance in between the jam and the door. And just likewise, when we pull up, we would create that space. So from this point, we're going to get around the back side of the door and around to leverage off of the jam. So as a one-man evolution, I want to be as far back on my tool as possible to get as much leverage out of this Halligan tool. So with my hand on the forks, I'm going to pull back until I can see daylight on the other side of this door. That's going to let me know when I'm striking this tool that I'm going to be getting around it. So once my tools begin to be set there, I can let go of it, it's going to stay in the door, and now I want to drive until I have my adze end sunk all the way into that jam. So from this point, I'm all the way around the door, I'm all the way past the jam, all I have to do is force the door. So I don't want to just gung-ho open the door, everything's going to be a controlled motion and it's going to be controlled ventilation. So I'm going to keep my foot in front of the door so it doesn't just swing open. So from this point, the door is already forced. If there's any remaining locks, let's say we have like a rim lock on the other side. If there's something that's still holding the door up, and I'm not getting the leverage I need, I can always take my pick end, take that, put that in the gap that I just created, and now I'm going to open up another range of motion. To continue to force the door, I still have my foot in front of the door to make sure that this doesn't fly open. And finish forcing the door. So that's the one person, outward swinging, high density evolution.
Strike. Strike. Basically what we want to practice is the same three methods. We want to try, pry, break, and then we also want to gap, set, force. So with two people here, we're going to come up and we're going to approach our door. So obviously we're going to try initially. So here we are trying, obviously it's outward swinging. We can't really do anything. So the first thing we do is we got to gap this right here. So what I'm going to do is take the adze end of my Halligan here, and he's going to strike. When he strikes, basically I'm waiting until it hits basically the stop. Once I hit the stop, I'm then going to pull back at a 45 so that I don't go through that actual stop and get around the entire door to maximize the amount of forcible or fulcrum point. So what we'll do is we'll go ahead and set this. My partner go ahead and strike. 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 Okay. So, not sure if you're able to hear the sound difference, but now I know I'm at the stop. So what we're gonna do is I'm gonna pull back and my partner here is gonna go ahead and look for daylight and he's gonna continue to strike as I pull back at a 45 so we can get around that stop. Strike. So once we got around that stop, my partner, you can see, just continue to swing. So he can see the door, and at that point, we're ready to go. So I can stand right here. We want to make sure that we control the ventilation, control the door. We don't want to introduce any flow paths by opening this door and not controlling it. So on the count of 3, we're going to go ahead and push. 1, 2, 3. Point. And go ahead and finish the door. So at this point, after we force the door, we're going to go ahead and have our partner kind of step out of the way. And it's only going to require one person to finish off this door. So what we'll do is we'll take the adze, the pike, we'll get both of them around. At that point, I can control the door here with my knee, and then we're going to just basically walk forward and finish the door off. So that's an outward swinging metal door and a metal frame set in masonry, typically referred to as a high density door, utilizing conventional forcible entry tools with 2 people.
So the first thing we want to do is size up our door. So to start, we have a metal door encased in a metal frame, encased in simulated masonry, and then we're going to size up our locking mechanism. From there, we always want to try, pry, and then break. So trying it, nothing. I can assess the play in the door to see if there's more than one locking mechanism or where I'm going to have the most flex in the door. So to do that, I can either be pressing on the top or pressing on the bottom. So I'm pressing my boot. Hardly getting anything. Same thing, I don't have anything up top to really use. So I'm gonna have to gap the door manually. So there's various ways to begin the gap on an inward swinging door. I'll go over 3 different ways, and then I'm gonna go ahead and end with the way that I prefer. First way is use the adze end of the Halligan. So what I'm gonna wanna do is go as low as I need to go to create any sort of space to try to get the narrowest part of that adze in between the stop and the door. So sometimes I may be able to do that with just some pressure. In this case, I can't. So from here, so I'm going to line up the adze end with the gap in the door, and then I'm going to strike it to create that gap. So from here, the adze end is in past the door and it's hitting the other side of the jamb. So from this point, the door, that gap has begun to form, and then we can go and proceed to make that larger and larger. Second way I'm going to show you is with the force wedge. This is just a specialized little tool that you can carry to help you get through these doors. It's going to be the same mechanism. The narrow end of the force wedge is going to find whatever point you need in that door and go as low as you need to go to find that gap. Once that wedge is in there, I can do the same thing and strike the end of it and drive that all the way to the jamb. So I can hear when I hit that, when I hit metal on metal, and that's when I know I'm not going to get any more distance out of this wedge. From this point, just like with the Halligan, I would work my way up, creating a bigger and bigger gap until I can attack the locking mechanism. This is the last method. This is the method that I prefer. I'm going to use the head of the axe as my force wedge. I'm going to force that into the gap of the door. I prefer this method because the irons are going to be universal. They're going to be carried on all units. It's a very simple evolution to be able to just use your foot and basically the tools at hand to get into the doors. So what I want to do is I want to take the butt of this axe and I want to put it on the inside curvature of my foot. Then I'm going to line that up with the jamb of the door and align that to be so I can strike the back of the axe and drive that into that jamb. So everything's held with tension. My foot has that axe, so it's not going to slide out. So when I strike, that forces it to go straight into that jamb. So from here, I've quickly created a gap for myself where I can then insert the adze end and begin to work my way up towards that locking mechanism. So I've removed my tool that I used to gap the door. Now I have the adze end in. From here, I can apply leverage and continue to make that gap bigger and bigger. So from here, I'm gonna try to get as much leverage as I can on my Halligan tool, lift that up for as much distance as I can create between this door and the jamb. So my goal here is to create as much distance and as much daylight on the other side of that door so I can put my axe in there and preserve this space that I've made. So with my axe set, I set it low because it's going to stay out of the way. Now I've created a large gap in the door where I can move up and now start to use either the fork end, or I can continue to use the adze to all the way up towards my locking mechanism. So with my tool as close as I can get, I don't need to move any further up or down. I'm going to get the most leverage I can now to create that gap. So just as I did the first time, I just did this the second time, but close to the locking mechanism. As you can see, I have a clear stretch of daylight on the other side of this. I can preserve this gap. From here, I have two options. If I don't have enough room with my fork ends to get all the way through and around the other side of that door, I can strike the back of my axe to make more room for myself. So from here, as you can see, the door is almost forced. I can easily insert the fork ends and force the door. As stated before, we don't just want to blow through the doors. We want to control this door. We want to control the ventilation that's going to serve for the structure. So from there, the door is forced. If there was a remaining rim lock, if there was some other secondary locking mechanism, if I needed more range of motion, I can take my Halligan tool, instead of just using the fork and being out of leverage from this angle, I can take the pick end, take the adze end, and create another fulcrum point for me to continue to leverage off of and get more distance to push that door. So as a one-person inward swinging high density prop.
Alright, so we're going to be covering a two-person forcible entry on an inward swinging commercial door. So it's a metal door encased in a metal frame and simulated masonry. So here in the city of Riverside, we recognize these doors as a high-density door. So, but with a solid foundation of conventional forcible entry, we can create the same three-step method of gap, set, force, and we can get through this door. So what we're going to do is, initially, like always, we're going to come up and we're going to try. Obviously, we can't get through. So then we're going to pry. A couple ways of prying, like we talked in the previous videos. You can push down here at the floor. There's a couple other methods that you can do is you can strike high, middle, and low. The reason why we're staying so close to the metal jamb is because that's where the locking mechanisms are on inward swinging doors. On our outward swinging doors, it's easy because a lot of times you're going to see drop bars, the bolts can run through the exterior. Inward swinging commercial doors, they're usually fully encased drop bars, so we're not going to see anything like that. So by going ahead and striking low, middle, and high, we can see where the tightest part of the jamb is, and then that's the part that we want to attack. So utilizing the two-person method, we already tried, so we're going to go ahead and try to create that gap. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come down here, strike, strike, strike. Okay, so now that we're at the stop, we can go ahead and use the fulcrum of the Halligan. So we're going to go ahead, lift up. I want my partner to capture that daylight. Either go below or he can go above. Sometimes if it's real tight like it is right now, we can even take the flat-headed axe, flip it upside down, and get after it. we're able to go ahead and capture that gap. So I'm gonna remove my adds. And then we're gonna go ahead and strike. So at this point, we can either continue with our adds, or just like our common inward swinging doors, we can go bevel to the jamb or bevel to the door. So bevel to the jamb, especially on an inward swinging door, is gonna use the natural curvature of the Halligan, and it's gonna work its way around that jamb. It's not necessarily gonna give us the maximum amount of push, but it is easier to drive through. Bevel to the jamb, bevel to the door is going to kind of dig in, but if we've created enough gap and we can get by it, we can go ahead and force that door. So at this point, I'm still gonna utilize my adds, create more of a gap. My partner has captured that, so now we're gonna finish. So now I'm gonna go ahead and remove that. So at this point, I'm gonna cover the pike, control it. Again, this is an inward swinging door, so we'd either utilize some sort of webbing strap, hold the door, but as we strike this and before we force, we want to control the door so we don't have any unwanted ventilation. Down to 3, we're going to go ahead and force. 1, 2, 3. As you can see, the door kind of got away from us. If you don't have a strap, but you got your Halligan, as it swings away, just reach back, utilize the adds and the pike, that way we control the door. So that's a simulation utilizing 2-person, inward swinging, commercial metal door, and a metal frame encased in masonry.